Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session on engaging all learners. Oops.
Sorry, I'm just going to share again for
Using the M5th early math approach. So if that's the session you intended to join tonight, you are at the right place. And Lexi and I are excited to be here and present about the M to the 5th early math approach. Lexi, are we ready to continue?
Yeah, I'm seeing participants still trickling in.
Should we give it a few? Should we give it a minute?
Yeah, I see 68, 69. And it's not the screen is sharing on your end?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hello. Okay.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and get started.
Let's do it. So we are going to present today on the M to the 5th early math approach, particularly through the lens of how to engage all learners when using this approach. We are from Wested working in partnership with Count, Play, Explore, and the resources we are presenting today, the materials are drawn from a program of professional learning that is developed by the initiative, by Count, Play, Explore, and some of the materials we present are taken specifically from a suite of professional learning on Count, Play, Explore, a product of Fresno County Superintendent of Schools, and developed in collaboration with Wested and other partners on the initiative. Specifically about the math, the M to the 5th math approach we are presenting, I wanted to call out that we are partnering with CPE, and Wested has used that approach before, and the CPE, the Count, Play, Explore approach, adapted this with permission from Wested. So who are we? And we'll also want to learn about who you are. My name is Osnat Zur. I am from Wested. I'm the content area lead for early childhood learning and development. And I'm presenting here today with my colleague, Lexi Alexander. Lexi, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, my name is Lexi Alexander. I'm a program associate with Wested and excited to explore M to the 5th with you all today. Great. I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll, and we're going to learn a little bit more about you all. And where did it go? I lost the launch button. Olivia, if you can launch the poll for me. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you. So we're curious to know about your role, the age of children that you work with, and what type of setting you're in. I see a lot of educators, some educational leaders, teacher assistants, a lot of preschool and TK. We see some infant and toddler early elementary as well. About half of you in center-based care. Another good chunk from public schools, some family childcare homes, lovely, and private schools too.
What a nice spread, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
All right, I'm going to
sharing about yourself.
Okay, I'll share those results so we all can see. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Lexi. So in the session today, we'll explore the M to the 5th early math approach. We also want to think about how to use mutual learning specifically to engage all learners. M to the 5th, as you'll see, has 5 components. Mutual learning is in the middle. It is called M to the 5th because it includes 5 teaching practices to support young children's early math learning. Mutual learning, is in the center. Meaningful investigations, materials and learning environment, multiple representation, and math vocabulary and discourse. You may guess by now why it's called M to the fifth, but if you take a close look, you'll see that each of these practices starts with an M. And with that, we decided just for the shortcut and also for it being a math framework to call it M to the fifth. So we have 5 M's, each representing a practice. We have mutual learning in the middle because we want to learn and be responsive to individual children. And we'll talk more today about this bidirectional process of teachers learning from children in the same way that children learn from teachers, and how teachers can use this information to tailor their support to individual children. Meaningful investigations is focusing on providing inquiry-based learning and playful learning experiences, ones that really allow children to question, to experiment, and to use math to solve authentic problems of interest. To the right of it, we have materials and learning environment. And it's focusing mainly on how you set a rich learning environment, one that has objects and materials that promotes the exploration and problem solving I just talked about as part of meaningful investigations. So for these investigations to be meaningful, they need to be hands-on, as many of you know from practice of ECE, and materials and learning environment is putting an emphasis on the kind of materials and resources that support children's early math learning. Next is math vocabulary and discourse. And we know that a big part of children's making sense of math is using math vocabulary. And it could be as simple words as big or small, or describing differences, bigger or smaller, referring to numbers, referring to data. The entire scheme of math vocabulary, describing shapes, and this is a big component of how children make sense of mathematics and how they use language to help them express their understanding and help them solve problems. And then the last one is multiple representations. How do we offer children opportunities to explore, to express math ideas in a variety of ways? So they have more than one context, maybe more than one modality to express and make meaning of different math concepts. So this was kind of a high level in a nutshell, the 5 M's in our M to the fifth early math approach. And we want to say a few words, if we can go to the next slide, Lexi, about this approach in general. First of all, we want to emphasize that it is research-based. Many studies show children learn more math and develop a deeper understanding of math concepts when educators use practices like the ones I just gave an overview of. Second, as you noticed, mutual learning is at the center because it is a child-centered framework. Children are at the center, meaning that when you support children's early math learning, you really pay attention to the individual. What are their interests? What are their strengths? What are their needs? The M to the fifth approach honors children's unique ways of knowing, of learning, including their language, their culture, their lived experiences, their abilities. So it's when we keep the child at the center, we really can offer learning experiences that support development and learning for all children of any background, race, culture, ethnicity, gender, ability, or socioeconomic status. The next, I would say, characteristic of this approach, and you probably could glean it from some of the M's or components in the approach I just described, is that it's inquiry-based. The M fifth approach is also about having children question, building on children's interest. The goal is not for children to memorize facts, like the names of shapes or the numbers in the count list, but it's really about learning that allow children to solve real-world problems, work with math ideas, develop understanding of math concepts, as to really challenge them to think rather than to memorize. And then the last one is that the M to the fifth approach can be used very flexibly. It is not associated with a particular curriculum or an age grade. It can be applied in tandem with any curriculum, and can be used to support learning across the day in different times of the day, whether it's through an interaction during routines or in a more planned learning experiences that target a particular math skill or concept. So there is flexibility on how you apply these 5 M's when supporting children's learning and development. And these 4 characteristics apply to this framework as a whole.
And there's also, you can access an overview document in the resource tab that has more information on each of the practices, as well as some additional examples for each of those M to the fifth practices.
Great.
All right. So we're going to take a moment to experience the M to the fifth approach through a playful math experience that's focused on shapes. So first, we want you to think about your home, wherever your home might be, an apartment, a house, a condo, wherever you call home. Think about what that looks like in your mind. And we're going to ask you to draw a representation of your home. So create a representation of your home. Now, a lot of folks, when we say to draw your home, they may start and just draw, well, here's an iconic classic house. I have a square on the bottom and triangle roof on the top. But if you really think about what your home looks like, probably doesn't look anything like this. So we want to challenge you to really take the time and consider the details, consider the different shapes that might be in your home. Do you have stairs? Are there flower boxes? Are your windows tall? Are they long? Do you have a chimney? What does your roof look like? Is it slanted? There's some roofs that are flat. So really take a deep mental journey into what your home looks like, and then create a representation of that through drawing. I'm going to give you all about 2 minutes or so to make a sketch of your home. Okay. You can keep sketching if you're still busy representing your home. We're going to add to this drawing, right? So let's take a moment now to consider the different shapes that you might find in this sketch of your home. For example, here's a sketch of my home that I sketched. And we want to think about the shapes we might find. So after I drew my home, I went back and I looked and I outlined the shapes that I found. I found rectangles in the windows. I found rectangles on the roof. And then I also found triangles on the eaves, on the edges of the roof. Right? Now, if we keep looking, we might find more, like a rectangle in the door and rectangles on the stairs. Take a moment and outline the different shapes you might find in your sketch. And then if you can share in the chat, what are some different shapes that you found and where did you find them? A circle on the door. rectangles, doors, window, triangles on a roof. Oh, parallelogram. Very interesting. Oh my goodness. Rectangle on a garage door. A rhombus design on windows. Awesome. I'm seeing so many great shape words being used, and even different ways that we can represent our homes, because all of our homes are going to be uniquely different. Squares in the garage door. Cylinder on the roof. Very cool. Diamonds in the wall. Hexagon window. I'm going to scroll up through the chat again and see what I missed.
I'm seeing many shapes.
Many shapes in many different places too.
Uh-huh.
Rectangle on windows, and oh, even curves.
Trapezoid, parallelogram, cylinder.
Awesome. Right? So let's take a moment and we're going to think about, thank you guys for sharing. I wish I could see all of your sketches. Let's take a moment to think about now how this experience might help us to, or how we can see the M to the 5th practices through a simple and playful experience like drawing our homes and searching for shapes within them. So we can start with mutual learning, and we can think how, as Osna had said, mutual learning is about learning and being responsive to individual children, right? So when we provide opportunities like the one we did just now, it allows us an opportunity to learn about children, to learn about their homes, to learn about their neighborhoods, to learn about their lived experiences. So when you drew your home, it helped us learn about where you lived and what experiences you might have. Okay? We can think about this as a meaningful investigation because you were able to, finding shapes within your home allowed you to apply your shape knowledge in a meaningful way. So a lot of you were able to name different shapes, and you did so in a meaningful context, right? In a space that was unique to your lives and that was different and unique from others around you too. We can consider the materials and learning environment, right? We didn't have any special requirements for these materials except some way to represent a sketch of your home. We used open-ended, flexible materials that allowed you to use them in different ways. Math, vocabulary, and discourse. So as you all were through the chat describing the different shapes that you found and where those might be in your homes, you were using shape vocabulary. And again, you were doing so in a context that was meaningful to you uniquely. And then finally, we can consider multiple representations. Here we were drawing with a paper and pencil or maybe a pen, and that's one way that we can represent shapes. But there's other ways we might include, consider things like Play-Doh, even pipe cleaners. We could use tangrams, or even using digital imagery through a computer programming. These are all different ways that children can represent shapes through different contexts. So that provided us an opportunity to experience those 5 M's in a playful math experience.
Okay, so with the topic of our forum tonight, thinking about all learners, we specifically want to put a spotlight on mutual learning of all the 5 M's as part of the framework, because we want to think about what it takes to support all learners in math and what would be a strategy for doing that. So what do we mean by mutual learning? Mutual learning is when children and educators are learning, right? We may be having the perception that teachers are always to teach and children are to learn, but of course we are lifelong learners as educators, right? And to support children in the best way, we need to find ways to learn about them. Because only by knowing who the child is and learning about individual children in your group, you can indeed create learning experiences that are meaningful for them. So it starts with the basic thing of what are their interests, what languages they speak. You may speak to them in English, but they know concepts or skills that they may represent or express in a different language. In what ways they are influenced or they represent characteristics from their culture, from their lived experiences that provide them context for learning, that they bring into the learning experience. And children come, with a range of skills and abilities, and development is over time. And they have those emerging knowledge and skills, maybe something they didn't quite understand or knew 2 months ago. They are now getting it and can count all the way to 12 because they figured out the system. How would you know? It's only by close observations and finding ways to learn about individual children in your group. What interests them? How individual children approach mathematical problems, how they show their thinking. Some children may use their fingers, others may use language. They can be drawing their thinking and explain how they solve the problem. And also in what ways they experience math at home. They have many influences in their lived experiences, and they may engage in math through everyday interactions with their parents, through games with their siblings, with their parents. So outdoors or indoors, there are many ways in which they can show interest and develop their math skills. And as educators, you use what you learn about children to plan learning experiences and environments that best support their learning and are tailored to where they are developmentally and who they are as learners. So mutual learning is really at the center of this approach and informs the ways we use other M5 practices. Because once you know more who the child is, you may consider what language, right? We say math language, what language you want to introduce the child, and whether you do it in English or in a different language. So how do you introduce math vocabulary? What representation, we talk about multiple, right? What will be the best modalities for this child, knowing their interest and how they engage with materials? So this is at the center of how you use each of the other M's when you support children's early math learning. And why mutual learning is important? Because think about the learner. If you provide learning experiences that are meaningful for them, that show them that we honor who they are as learners, it helps them feel a sense of belonging. They want to be part of the experience. It really contributes to their engagement. They'll be more engaged. They'll feel that they belong, and it relates to their lived experiences and what they know. So it helps them make connections to what they know and build on that to acquire more knowledge or deepen their understanding. And it also allows for providing individualized support, because not every child is learning in the same way and at the same pace. And it's only by observing individual children and tailoring our supports to where they are and what are they ready for and what really engages them, that you can provide support that is individualized and tailored to each and every child in your group. Lexi, I think from here you're going to take us to some additional activity. Yeah.
Yes. So let's consider, building on what we know about mutual learning, ways that we can learn about children, right? So mutual learning is learning all about children. Well, how do we learn about children? Well, as Osnat said, we can observe children carefully, right? And that's our third image over here on the right. Observing children carefully, noticing the languages they're using, noticing what they're interested in, noticing where they may struggle, noticing where they may excel. These are all ways we can learn about children through our everyday interactions. And mind you, these observations aren't always in the context of a math experience, but we may learn about children by observing them and paying attention and having conversations during mealtime, or at pick up or drop off, or when they are out on the playground or at recess. We can notice what they do, what words they use, and how they approach their world. Now, as educators, we can choose to put on a mathematical lens and really focus on those interactions, attending to their mathematical understandings. But there's opportunities for that sprinkled throughout our day and across interactions with children. So observing children carefully and intentionally is a fantastic way to learn about them. We can also provide choices. Let me get back to my notes because I think I'm skipping some items. So we know that educators can observe children, but they can also provide choice and options for children, because that's going to allow them to express themselves in different ways. If we only provide one direction, then we don't know where a child may deviate from that, right? So when educators can invite children to choose where and how to play or how to approach a problem, they might show us their strengths, right? If we provide children different strategies to use to approach a math problem, they may choose a strategy that gives us information about their understanding. If we provide them choices in what they choose to use to approach problems, right? So if we're using base 10 blocks, or if we're using unit cubes, or if we're using 10 frames, providing children choice in those materials will give us clues into what they're comfortable with and how they approach and understand mathematics. So providing that choice gives us more opportunity to observe and learn from children. And another way we can learn about children is with partnering with families, right? So we might learn about children by I'm sorry, I already said that. But we might notice how they communicate with their family members, and we might be able to, learn about their cultures and lived experiences. And this may happen in many different ways. So this could be casual conversations with families during pickup or drop off. We can invite families to share information about their children's lived experiences outside of the classroom. Or we can ask families to even share items or photos from home. This is such a great way to learn about what children experience when they're not in our learning settings. And it is also a wonderful way to bring in items that are unique to them. And children get very excited and very engaged when they see something that is from their home now in their learning setting. They have ownership over whatever this object or item might be, and are really excited to share it with others and more interested in engaging with these materials sometimes. When we can use those materials to support math learning, we can really boost that engagement and also connect more deeply with children. This also provides us a wonderful opportunity to build relationships with families too. And when we can build those trusting relationships by valuing what families do in their homes, we build trust and we build connection, which really goes a long way in supporting children. Okay, so let's take a little time now. We're going to watch a video and we're going to review some vignettes and think more about mutual learning. So I'm going to ask you all to create a chart. And we're going to kind of break down this idea of mutual learning, right? So we shared 3 ways that we might learn about children. So it's not just noticing children, but there's different ways we might do it. So as we're going to view a video next, and on your chart, you can document what you notice about what the educator learned. Think about how the educator learned this information, and then consider ways that they use this information to support children's math learning. Okay, so you can fold your paper into 3s, you can draw a quick chart, and sketch out these 3 labels: what the educator learned, how they learned it, and ways they used what they learned to support children's math understanding of mathematical concepts. Okay. So hopefully you all have your charts ready. We're going to observe a video clip. is an example of an educator using mutual learning to support a child's understanding of relative size. As you observe the video, add notes to your chart on what the educator learned about the child, how the educator learned this information, and then how the educator used this information to support this child's math learning. Okay.
I have three. Which one is the longest? The tallest? This one? This one is the shortest. Shortest is the small. Shortest means small. Longest means the tallest one.
So my daddy is that tall.
Your daddy is that tall?
Yeah,
Okay.
my mom's that tall.
So your daddy is this tall. Your mommy is this tall. And you are this tall. And who is this tall? You have anybody in your family that could be that tall?
Yeah.
Who?
My cousin Alexa's baby.
Your cousin Alexa's baby could be the smallest one.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so this is cousin Alexa's baby. That's you? Or this
So
one?
that's my brother Chente. And
how
that's
about-
my brother Gio.
That's your brother Gio. And which one is you? Oh, that one. Are you younger than brother Gio?
No.
No? Are you shorter than brother Gio?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, and how about,
I'm gonna make Charlie.
who could be this tall in your family?
Charlie.
Charlie? Is Charlie younger than you? Smaller than you? Yeah?
He's like short.
Charlie is short?
Yeah.
So he's shorter than you? Yeah?
Okay, I'm going to stop there. We're not going to do part 2. So let's discuss through the chat. Let's first think about, what did the educator learn? What information did the educator learn about this child through the interaction? Learned about the child's family, right? So we got to learn several different family members' names, their ages, their sizes, different family members. I saw somebody else. So we learned about the girl's family by using the Unifix cubes. Cousins, the heights, the brothers, and herself. And that the child is using family members as a way to understand measurement, right? As a way to understand relative size. More about the child measuring. And her dad is the tallest, right? So the child is using the analogy with family.
I want to add to the question, what emerging maths knowledge the teacher can observe in the child through this conversation. I see size comparison, measurements. Introducing math words and the child developing her math vocabulary. I think we also noticed how the teacher became aware of the way she uses math vocabulary and corrected sometimes the child, sometimes herself even.
Classification, comparing and contrasting, proportions. Awesome. And when we think about, again, breaking down this idea of mutual learning, really paying attention, so we have a good understanding of the various different things that this educator learned. How did the educator learn this? Right? We introduced 3 different ways: observing children, offering choice, partnering with families. When we think about this interaction on the clip, how did the educator learn this? The conversations, open-ended questioning, dialogue, being present. Yeah, absolutely, Mary. Really being in that moment and taking the time to journey with her and embrace her conversation about her family. Following the child's lead, absolutely. Being flexible about how she presented content. That's a really, really important part, right? Sometimes it's very difficult as an educator when we have so much we want to cover in our day to be flexible. And I think one way that we saw this educator do that was really by building in the time within her center work to be able to be present with different children and be able to have those one-on-one moments. But taking that time to be present and focus on the child is one way that she was able to learn as much as she did. Absolutely. Listening to the child's observations. Yeah.
I also think, Lexi, we started a lot with talking about the family and how the child found a way to connect and make it meaningful for them. But then look at all the other aspects we have mentioned related to the math vocabulary, which is 1M, right? We have materials. The blocks really made it easier for the child to engage in a very abstract conversation of comparing heights of several people and telling the story of different people's heights in their family. So it's the materials, it's the language, right, that allow them to engage in this more abstract investigation on heights of their family members and who is taller than who.
Right. And that really gets into our last question and area for kind of deep thinking is, how did the educator use this information to support math learning, right? And we've all had those conversations with children where they are so excited to tell you about when they went to the zoo and all the animals they saw and all this different information, and you have everybody wanting to share, and it feels like information overload sometimes, but there's ways that we can really leverage that to support learning. And this was such a lovely moment that we got to really see that happen, where it wasn't just, I mean, sometimes we can just take in that information and hold it, but in this instance, we got to see her use that information to build understanding, right? So how did the educator use this information to support math learning? I'm scrolling through. Engaging with the child, right? So using that just as a springboard to continue conversations and engage the child. This was something that she was interested in. She's going to have greater conversation. She's going to use more vocabulary and language because this topic of her family is something that's very interesting to her. It also helps make that experience really joyful for the child because she's invested in it and she wants to share with her educator about her family. So engagement is definitely one way we can use that information to support learning. But we also saw really great connections to help this child understand concepts related to relative size. She's experienced in her home, her family members. She has knowledge of what it means to be taller, right? Her dad is the tallest, and she can physically experience that looking up at dad being taller. Gives her a really solid understanding of what that means, right? What does the vocabulary word of being taller mean, or the tallest mean? By connecting it to an experience that she has had in her own life, it makes that understanding of that language and that concept very, very clear for a child. And connecting it down to the shortest, cousin Alexa's baby being teeny, teeny, tiny. As a child, you're going to experience that difference again, physically experiencing, looking up at dad and understanding what tallest is, and looking down at tiny baby Alexa's, or cousin Alexa's baby, and really getting a firm understanding of what smallest or shortest is going to mean. And we can relate that back. We saw the educator relate that back to those unit cubes as a way to build her understanding of vocabulary and be able to compare those relative sizes. Was there anything else you'd like to add about this video?
I'm looking at the chat and I'm also seeing the theme of the educators here, our participants, noticing how the teacher asked open-ended questions, repeated what they acknowledged first, not jumping to say the answer or correct her, always letting the child share and then repeating it and following up with a question, which I thought it was a very nice contribution of our participants, and I'm seeing it as a repeated theme. So
Yeah.
also the way the teacher engaged with patients, letting the child share it, and then repeating what the child is saying.
Right. Really that kind of serve and return interaction and being responsive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's look at a few more examples. So this time we have 2 vignettes. Now I know we have a broad stretch of age ranges that are participating and learning with us today. We have an infant toddler vignette on the left and a preschool TK kinder vignette on the right. So we encourage you to choose the vignette that is most appropriate for you, that connects best with you and your learning setting. Read the vignette and then add to your chart. Think about, well, what did the educator learn? How did they learn this? And then how did they use what they learned to support a child's understanding? So I'll give you all about a minute to review your vignettes and another minute to mark up your notes. And then we'll take some time to discuss. Okay, so as you make your notes, think about, what did the educator learn? How did they learn this information? And how did they use what they learned to support a child's understanding? All right. So let's hear from you all. We'll start with our infant toddler example. And let's think about ways that the educators in this example learned about children, right? So in this vignette, we have an educator invited families to bring empty containers from home. Some examples of different items families shared were a tissue box, plastic yogurt tub, a bamboo steamer. The educator invited the children to explore the containers and experiment with putting different objects inside of them. So experiences like this can help children's spatial thinking, helping them understand different shapes, inside, outside, on top of, various different spatial words and concepts related to geometry. When we think about this, what did the educator learn? I'm seeing a lot of folks responding to our preschool example, which makes sense because I know that is the majority of our attendees. So I'll go ahead and review the infant toddler in this example, and then we'll skip to preschool. But in this example for infant and toddler, we can see that the educator is learning about children's lives and cultures and she did this by inviting families to share materials from home. So encouraging families to share items they may have in their home gives us a sneak peek into the culture of that family. We get to better understand through this example, what types of foods they may eat, what types of containers they have. And although that's a small detail, that tells us some information about their culture, about their experiences at home, and about things that the child might be familiar with. Now, we use this information, this understanding of cultures and different materials that children may experience at home to help encourage their understanding of spatial thinking, right? By providing opportunities for children to explore those materials in different ways in the learning setting. Let's go over to our preschool TKK vignette. So in this instance, the educator is learning about a child's emerging understandings of counting. And here, through observation, is the way that the educators learned this, right? They're observing the child while they're outside collecting balls, and notice that he keeps skipping the number 9. And in this instance, he's counting in his home language, which is Spanish. So the educators are responsive to this, and they are intentional about ways that they can support a child's understanding of the count sequence by finding different opportunities to practice counting and to model counting up to 10, really emphasizing that use of 9 and helping him to understand how to move through the count sequence in both English and Spanish. We also see educators leaning on this child's interests to, again, enhance engagement and encourage his participation in that process. Osa, anything else you'd like to add on this?
No, I think we see a common theme of first observing children engaged with objects can reveal a lot. With the infant toddlers, they can learn about how they engage with the objects and what spatial reasoning skills they are developing in understanding size and capacity and how things fits with each other in space. And in the case of a collection of balls, and think about it in your classrooms, a collection of any object immediately invites opportunities to count them. And like we had Julia's example earlier with the pasta, to sort them by color or by other features. So a collection of objects here allowed for an opportunity to learn about the child's counting skills. But all of this in both of them became even more meaningful when we rely on objects from home or when we observe a child using the home language. Now it's not at the very, surface level and expecting all children to be the same, but really noticing the nuance and paying attention to individual characteristics of children. We have 2 minutes.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to close out our session today and invite you all to reflect on this very, very brief introduction to the M to the 5th early math approach and our focus on mutual learning. Well, we want you to think about what are some ways you might use M to the 5th or mutual learning specifically to engage all of your learners in your classroom. So it might be something you might try.
Yeah, and we want to remind you that you have the handouts in your resources. So use it and come back to it in a different day, maybe tomorrow after you have heard this presentation, and you can start making more connections to your practice. Sorry if I cut you, Lexi.
Oh, no, you're fine. And then if there's any questions, you all are welcome to add to the chat, and we're happy to answer your questions. We're quietly reviewing your comments in the chat. It's wonderful to see all of your messages.
There is a question on how they get the resources. So does everyone has the tab to click for resources? Yeah, you see at the bottom. Next to the chat and participants, there should be a button that says resources. Click on it. And then when you go to resources, look for, I think it's called PowerPoint or materials.
There's a PowerPoint and then there's also a handout.
Mm-hmm. And it's under documents. It's documents, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Resources, yes.
Thank you for joining us tonight. And
Yes, thank you, everybody.
we hope you have learned something valuable and you go home with an abbreviated framework that can become handy to you as you support children's early math learning.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.